The sky was falling. Smoke rose from the shattered towers of Cathalin's capital city. Fires danced across the ground like red serpents, leaving behind nothing but ash. Screams echoed in the air, lost among the thunder of enemy gunships. The Growl were here, and they were not interested in mercy. Inside a deep bunker beneath the mountains, High Scholar Varel gripped the edge of the console. Her blue skin was bruised, her breathing fast. She had tried every frequency, every known ally, every possible channel. No one had answered. "Try again," she whispered to the AI assistant beside her. "I have," the machine replied. 37 times. They're killing our cities." She said, "We are a peaceful people. We have nothing left to give." The AI paused, then spoke. "I can transmit a final wide-range distress signal. It may reach beyond known systems, but there are risks. What kind of risks? Unknown. Civilizations may hear it. Some may not be kind." Virel's eyes hardened. The AI's core pulsed, and across the stars, a broken cry for help escaped into the unknown. On Earth no longer, the blue and green world, the galaxy, once Nutha message reached the military AI cluster known as Prometheus, it decoded the signal. In seconds, it analyzed the threat in minutes. It requested human oversight and received only one reply from General Reza, commander of Earth's 3rd Terran Armada. "We send the fleet," Reza said. Prometheus calculated the odds. 90% probability of overwhelming success. 56% chance of total planetary surface damage. "Adjust for mercy," Reza said, "but keep the fire." 3 days later, the people of Cathalin gathered in silence. Their skies, once bright, were covered in black clouds. The Growl walked freely in the streets, taking what they wanted. They had broken every defense. Hope was gone. Something massive descended, shaped like a spear of metal and thunder. Then another, then dozens. Ships unlike anything the Cathalon had ever seen filled the sky. The Growl fired first. It was a mistake. The Terran warships responded not with lasers or energy blasts, but with kinetic strikes so strong they shattered. Sound itself, invisible rods of metal punched holes through entire Growl vessels. Ground forces were vaporized where they stood. From the sky, burning pods rained down. When they struck the surface, they opened to reveal armored giants. Deathworlders.humans.virl stared through a broken window. One of the armored figures marched toward her building. It stood almost 2 meters tall, wrapped in dark armor that looked more like a machine than a living being. Its face was hidden behind a glowing visor. On its shoulder, a cannon hummed softly. She ran. The soldier didn't follow. Instead, he turned, raised his arm, and pointed at a nearby Growl gunship. A thin laser painted its hull. From above, a blue beam shot down and sliced the gunship in two. "Clear," the soldier's voice said through a speaker. Virel stopped. "You saved us?" she asked quietly. The soldier turned his helmet slightly. "You sent the signal." "We didn't mean we heard it," he said, "so we came." Across Cathalin, the battle was over in hours. The Growl were not prepared for Deathworld tactics. Human war doctrine was direct, brutal, and fast. No speeches, no warnings. Strike, confirm, move. Inside a cratered city square, a Cathal elder approached one of the commanders. Her voice trembled. "Who are you people?" The commander removed his helmet. His face was pale, eyes cold but tired. "We're from Earth. I thought Earth was quiet." "It was," he said, "long ago. Why help us?" He glanced at the ruined streets. "Because no one else would." In orbit, General Reza watched the cleanup operation from the bridge of the TNS Rathburn report, she said. Prometheus's voice filled the command deck. Growl forces eliminated, civilian casualties minimal. Operation time, 3 hours 42 minutes. Reza nodded. Inform the Cathalin that Earth will assist with rebuilding and establish a permanent orbital station. Understood. A junior officer turned to Reza. Permission to ask a question. Granted. Why did we come? They're not part of the Alliance. They didn't even know us. Reza stared at the stars. Because when a Deathworlder answers a cry for help, we don't send aid, we send a message. On the surface, Virel stood near the remains of her university. Human engineers were already laying down support structures. Cathalin children watched them with awe. A group of them walked up to a human soldier and offered him fruit. The man knelt down and smiled beneath his helmet. "Thank you," he said. One of the children tilted her head. "Are you going to leave?" The soldier looked up at the sky where Terran ships patrolled in silent formation. "Not until we're sure no one else will hurt you." Far beyond Cathalan, in the center of the Growl Imperium, the High Warlord received the footage. It showed human warships carving through their forces like knives through paper. The Warlord paused the screen at the face of a single human commanderin, blinking.com. The Warlord growled. His advisor whispered, "They're from a place called Earth, a death world." The Warlord's hands trembled slightly. "Send word to the outer fleets. Stay away from Earth's systems, and anywhere they answer calls from in a quiet Cathalan field." Varel stood beside the human soldier who had first saved her. His armor was scratched. His face was still unreadable. "Will you go now?" she asked. He looked at her. "When your skies are safe, you could have ignored our call." He didn't smile, but his voice was softer. "We don't ignore cries for help. We remember what it's like when no one comes." She looked at the stars. "Then we were lucky. Earth hurt us." He shook his head. "No," he said. "You were lucky Earth cared." The message was still echoing in Earth's deep space relay systems. Though static filled and faint, the meaning was clear. It was a cry for help, desperate, frantic. A voice asking someone for rescue. Earth had changed. It wasn't the same world that once looked to the stars with wonder. It was now a death world, a place of constant challenge. Only the strongest survived, and when they did, they became something terrifying. Deep beneath the Martian surface, inside a black facility powered by nuclear cores and AI minds, the signal played once more. "Anyone, our cities are gone. We are not warriors." General Reza watched it in silence. Her dark eyes didn't blink. She stood tall, wearing her gray command uniform, arms behind her back. Around her, war monitors displayed data, fleet positions, and enemy species reports. Prometheus, the central AI, hovered above the floor as a glowing blue sphere. Target world, Cathalan. Civilians only. Non-aggressive species. Current threat, Grawl Imperium forces, it reported. Reza nodded. Estimated civilian survival, 15%, dropping by 2% per hour. Another human officer stepped forward. His face was lined with old scars, and his voice was cold. "They're not in our alliance. Should we really send a fleet?" Reza didn't turn. "When we became Deathworlders, we swore one thing: we don't ignore cries for help. Ever." He hesitated. "It'll cost resources." Reza finally turned to face him. "Then it's a price we'll pay." She looked at the command screen. "Launch the third Terran Armada." In low orbit above Earth, the space around the military shipyards lit up. Giant carriers moved into position. Dozens of destroyers and dreadnoughts, painted black with no flags, began to wake. Crews entered cryochambers. Drones were armed. Drop pods were loaded. The third Terran Armada had no diplomats. It had weapons far away. On the broken world of Cathalan, silence filled the bunker. High Scholar Varel stared at the blinking lights on her console. There was no response. The signal had left, but she didn't know where it went. She doubted anyone heard it. Her people were dying. A young Cathalan male ran in. "The east shelter is gone. Growl tanks reached the walls. We have no time left." She held his hand. "Then we stay with the people." He didn't argue. There was no point. 6 days passed. Then the sky opened. Varel was the first to hear it, the low, thunderous hum that didn't come from growl machines. It was deeper, colder, like the sound of a storm wrapped in metal. She stepped outside the bunker and looked up. The clouds twisted. Dozens of dark ships appeared in the sky, silent, watching. The Growl panicked first. They aimed their cannons upward. The new ships didn't answer. Not with words. They answered with fire. In orbit, Admiral Nix, commander of the Third Armada, gave the order. "Begin cleansing strikes. Minimum civilian impact. Eliminate all Growl structures." The Terran ships moved like wolves. They didn't waste shots. They didn't warn. One Growl fortress vanished in a single blast. Another was pierced by a kinetic spike that punched through 5 layers of armor. On the ground, black pods dropped from the sky, crashing like thunder. Inside each pod, one Terran Marine, Cathallan citizens ran, screamed, or watched in frozen silence as the human soldiers began to march. Virel crouched behind a wall, clutching a wounded child. She saw one of the Terran warriors move past his armor, covered in dust, glowing faintly with blue energy. A Growl fighter ran at him, firing. The human didn't duck. He raised a hand, pointed, and a drone above fired a precision. Shot. The Growl's head vanished. The human didn't stop walking in orbit. Admiral Nix observed everything. Resistance. Minimal Growl units are scattering. They weren't prepared for a full Deathworld response. She nodded. As expected, these aren't warriors. They're hunters used to easy prey. An officer nearby asked, "Will we hold the system after the operation?" Nix looked at the planet below. "That depends. If they want protection, they'll get it. If not, we leave a warning." To who? To the galaxy. At the ruins of a Cathallan school, a group of survivors huddled in fear. A Growl patrol had surrounded them, shouting threats. Suddenly, metal footsteps echoed nearby. A single human appeared from the dust. The Growl aimed their weapons. "Leave, monster." The human didn't answer. He simply raised his wrist. A cluster of micromissiles launched from his armor, slicing through the Growl soldiers in seconds. The human approached the children. One of them cried. He knelt. "You're safe now." His voice was mechanical but soft. The child stared. "Are you a monster?" The soldier tilted his head. "No, just human." Virel later stood at the edge of a city that no longer burned. She looked around. Human engineers were building structures in hours. Drones patrolled the skies. Terran soldiers guarded Cathallan shelters without being asked. She walked up to a commander. "You came so fast." He nodded, because the message was clear. "We didn't know anyone would answer." He looked at the damaged city. "We don't answer every signal, just the ones that sound like us." "Like you?" He paused. "Helpless, forgotten, alone." "We've been there." Back aboard the TNS Rathburn, General Reza watched the fleet reposition itself. She asked that. Prometheus replied, "Planet secure." Growl fleet destroyed. No reinforcements detected. Reza turned to the stars. "Begin evacuation support for civilians, and prepare orbital defense grid. We're not done here." A young officer stepped forward. "Will we stay, ma'am?" She looked down at the image of Cathallan, children laughing near a human supply crate, old buildings being rebuilt. "For now," she said, "this world called out." So we answered. But in the shadows of the galaxy, others were listening. On a world far beyond Cathallan, a cloaked vessel replayed footage of the Third Terran Armada's assault. The observers said nothing. They simply watched how a Deathworld responded. One turned to the others. "We must update the warnings." Another nodded. "No more signals toward Earth, ever." And in red letters, a new message was added to the Galactic Registry. "Earth Deathworld, do not engage. If they respond, they do not send aid. They send fleets." For the first time in weeks, the citizens of Cathallan were no longer running. Smoke still rose from the ruins. The air still smelled of ash. But now, instead of fear, there was silence. The kind of silence that comes after something powerful has passed through a storm, a god, or something worse, and the humans. They were still here. Their ships floated high above, unmoving and watching like metal giants. Their soldiers marched the streets below. They didn't talk much. They didn't smile. They worked, patrolled, and guarded. And everywhere they walked, the Growl were gone. High Scholar Virel stood beside a collapsed pillar in the center of the capital. She looked up as one of the Terran dropships passed overhead. Its engines didn't roar like the Growl ships did. It hummed quietly, deadly. And calm, a Cathallan child tugged her robe. "Are they gods?" Virel shook her head slowly. "No, they are from Earth." The child tilted his head. "But Earth is far." "They came anyway," she whispered. In a nearby plaza, a group of Cathallan workers tried to lift debris from a crushed medical center. They struggled, panting, unable to move the heavy slabs. A loud stomp echoed. One of the humans arrived. His armor was large, stained with battle marks. Without a word, he stepped forward, scanned the structure, and reached down. He didn't speak. He simply lifted. The entire concrete block groaned and rose off the crushed structure. Cthulhan gasped. Two nurses ran in, pulling out 3 survivors. As soon as they were safe, the Terran dropped the debris to the side and walked away. "Wait," one of the workers called. "Who are you?" The human paused and turned his visor. Slightly Specialist Decker, 3rd Terran Marine Corps. "Why did you help us?" Decker's voice was flat. "Because we're not the monsters people think we are." From orbit, General Reza monitored every movement. Her screen flickered, with satellite feeds and ground reports. Cathallan civilians were being relocated to shelters. Growl stragglers were being hunted down. But something was wrong. Admiral Nix Reza said through the command link, "Did you notice the drop in Growl resistance?" "Yes, General." Nix replied, "Their ground forces are thinning too fast. It doesn't match usual retreat patterns." Reza narrowed her eyes. "It's a trap." Beneath the surface of Cathallan, deep in old Growl tunnels, something stirred. Commander Vorak of the Growl stood in the dark, his armor cracked but his rage intact. "They think they've won," he growled. "Let them believe it. Then we strike." Behind him, thousands of Growl soldiers stood ready. The Cathallan had been easy prey, but these humans, these Deathworlders, they were different. They fought without fear. Without pause, Vorak would make them bleed. Night fell over the capital. Terran Marines switched to night patrol. Their visors glowed faintly in the dark, scanning for threats. Drones circled the skies in silence. Cathallan civilians slept uneasily. In safe shelters guarded by metal monsters, they were slowly learning to trust. Virel sat by a fire inside one of the new camps. She watched as a human soldier sat across from her, sharpening a strange tool. "You don't rest?" she asked. The soldier shook his head. "Not during occupation." "Occupation. Until your world is safe, we stay." She hesitated. "Weapons? Your ships. You could destroy planets. Why use them to help us?" He stopped sharpening. "Because that's what power is for." She frowned. "To destroy," he looked at her. "No, to protect those who can't destroy back." At 3 o'clock local time, the trap was sprung. Explosions erupted across the old city ruins. Growl tunnel doors burst open. Armored vehicles stormed through the streets. Sniper fire lit the night. The Cathallan shelters came under sudden attack, but this time, Earth was ready. "Contact!" came a shout from a Terran forward base. Alarms blared. Marines snapped into motion. From above, drop pods screamed down again, dozens of them. This time, they didn't hold troops. They held auto turrets, medical drones, and mobile barricades. The ground itself began to change, reshaped by human technology. Commander Vorak charged through the chaos, his blade drawn. "Push forward, break their line." A rocket slammed into the wall beside him. He rolled, roaring in fury. But even as he stood, he saw it. A single human. She stood alone in the street, unarmored, wearing only a light exosuit. A red light glowed. On her wrist, "General Reza, you picked the wrong night," she said. Vorak charged. Reza didn't move from the sky. A beam of pure white light sliced down, hitting directly behind Vorak. It vaporized tanks and half his squad. He stopped mid-charge. "He should have stayed hidden," Reza said coldly. Across the city, Cathallan civilians awoke to the sound of thunder, but it wasn't the sound of loss. It was the sound of Earth's fury. Human mechs walked through streets like giants, mowing down Growl units. Jet troopers launched from rooftops, firing in midair. Terran Marines fought with silent precision, no panic. No retreat. One Growl soldier tried to use a Cathallan child as a shield. A single human sniper ended it in one shot. By sunrise, it was overdot again. This time, no Growl survived. Later, Virel stood outside a destroyed shelter, watching humans repair it. Decker walked past, dragging a power core on his back. "You knew they'd attack?" she asked. He nodded. "We've seen this pattern before. You could have left, but you stayed." He paused. "You sent a signal. We answered. Until you're safe, we don't leave." She looked around at the dead Growl, the wounded survivors, the calm human soldiers. "You don't do small aid, do you?" Decker gave a small smile. "No, we're Deathworlders when we help." He looked up at the sky, where the Terran fleet hovered like silent gods. "We bring everything." In a hidden chamber deep in the Growl territory, an old warlord slammed his fist on the table. "They wiped out Vorak's entire force." "Yes, warlord," said the messenger. They're not a rescue fleet. They're a weapon. The warlord turned to his advisors. Recall all forward scouts. If Earth gets another signal, it might be our world next. And in fear, the growl began to run. The skies of the burned colony world were still red with fire. Smoke curled into the heavens, hiding the stars. Deep beneath the rubble of a shattered bunker, Captain Ryland coughed through the dust and blood. His breathing was shallow, broken by pain, but his eyes were still sharp. "Status?" he asked hoarsely. Lieutenant Mira's face appeared in the dim emergency light. 50 civilians left. No power, no comms. We're trapped. Ryland leaned back against the cracked metal wall. Trying to stay conscious, the alien invaders, the Karath, had surrounded them. He knew their pattern weight: starve, slaughter. But they hadn't counted on one thing: the Deathworlders. "They'll come," Ryland whispered. Mira stared at him. "You think the Terrans will risk a fleet? For us, I don't think," Ryland said with a small, broken smile. "I know." Far above the ruined planet, in the dark silence of space, the TSS Warlord's promise hung like a black dagger against the void. Captain Juno Reyes stood on the bridge, arms behind her back, eyes locked on the battle map. "We've located Ryland's signal," her tactical officer said. "Alive, barely. Bunker deep under Sector 9, surrounded. No supplies, no way." Outraised didn't blink. How many enemy ships in system? 17 war cruisers, 32 support craft, hundreds of Karath fighters, and orbital defenses. Her second Dian comment stepped forward. "We'll never reach the surface. In time, not without heavy losses." Reyes turned to him with ice in her voice. "Do you know what happens when Deathworlders hear a cry for help?" He looked at her, silent. "We send fleets," she said. "We don't ask how many. We don't ask how bad. We just burn a path." The Karath commander hissed in satisfaction. The planet was almost fully theirs. The survivors were trapped, the resistance crushed. Another world added to their conquest. Nothing more than ants beneath our boots. He rasped to his second. "Their allies are cowards. None will come." Just then, alarms howled. Unidentified warp signatures detected. The Kurath officer's smile vanished. "How many?" The answer chilled him. "All of them." One by one, the stars blinked out, covered by hundreds of ships. Earth's 9th Fleet had arrived, from the giant war carriers to sleek Terran corvettes, the sky filled with death and vengeance. In the center, the warlord's promise surged forward, leading the charge: "Fire all batteries." Captain Reyes ordered. Lances of red and blue tore through the dark. Enemy cruisers exploded like glass under hammers. Karath fighters scattered like insects. But nowhere was safe. The Deathworlders were not here for a battle. They were here to end a war. Back underground, Ryland coughed again. He looked toward the ceiling. Distant rumbling shook the bunker. "What is that?" Mira gasped. "Salvation," Ryland said. He tried to stand but fell. Mira caught him. Explosions echoed above them. The world trembled. Then a sharp thunk-thunk of something breaking through steel and rock. Loud hiss of air dot. Then the ceiling above them was peeled. A winged Terran drop pod dropped into the room. The door burst. Open Terran soldiers in black exosuits swarmed out. "Captain Ryland," one of them barked. Ryland blinked. "You took your time," the squad leader chuckled. "We brought friends." On the surface, chaos reigned. The Kurath had never faced such coordinated destruction. Their ships fell, their weapons jammed. Terran gunships roared low. The ground forces hit like thunder tanks with plasma coils. Walkers with railguns, and drones with AI targeting systems that never missed. Captain Reyes watched it all unfold on the screen. Message from the enemy flagship. "Here comes officer." Said "Play it." The screen flickered. A Kurath commander appeared. His voice shook. "We surrender. We didn't know the humans would respond with such overwhelming force." Reyes narrowed her eyes. "You heard a cry for help," she said. "We heard a promise." She ended the call and turned to her crew. "Prepare surface teams. I want every bunker cleared, every survivor safe." As the sun rose on the ruined colony, hope returned with it. Terran medics moved quickly. Supplies dropped from orbit. Engineers set up energy shields and food stations. Children were lifted from hiding spots and carried to safety. One by one, the survivors walked out of the darkness, and among them, Rylan, now bandaged and weak, stepped into the light. His eyes scanned the sky and saw hundreds of Terran ships still holding position. "They really came," Myra whispered beside him. "They always do," Rylan said. A familiar voice spoke from behind. "Of course we came," Rylan turned. "Captain—" Ray stood there, her armored boots covered in dust, her face calm but hard. "You brought an entire fleet," Rylan said in awe. "We heard a Terran scream," Ray's replied. "You think we'd send just one ship?" He smiled weakly. "I'll try not to make a habit of this." She nodded. "Do that. But if you ever need us again," he finished for her, "you'll come with fire." Far above, as the last enemy signal vanished, the Deathworlders held position in orbit not as conquerors, but as guardians. They didn't come for glory. They didn't come for politics. They came because one of their own called out. And when a Deathworlder cries for help, the galaxy trembles at what answers. The skies over Arachnes IV were blackened by smoke. Fires raged in every direction. Crumbling buildings lay in ruin, their metal frames twisted and charred. The Zarn Empire had struck fast, ruthless, and without mercy. And now, the last resistance. Bunker deep beneath the capital was shaking. General Voro braced himself against the control table. Dust fell from the ceiling. A power conduit sparked nearby. "Status," he barked. "They've breached the outer wall. We're down to 20 defense drones and 3 plasma turrets," said his aide, struggling to stay calm. Voro knew it was over. The Zarn would not take prisoners, and their allies across the galaxy had gone silent. No one wanted to stand against the Zarn. No one, except maybe ... double quotes, "Is the distress signal still active?" Voro asked, his voice quiet now. "Yes, sir. But it's been nearly 40 hours. No one has answered." The general clenched his jaw. Then came the sound. A deep rumble. Not from above. From space. Boom, the entire bunker vibrated. Not from weapons, no. This was different. Far above Arachnes IV, space seemed to shimmer. And then, one by one, ships began to appear. Massive, black-hulled warships. Their sides were scarred with past battles. Their design was alien, aggressive, and unlike anything Voro had seen before. Thousands of smaller craft followed, moving in precise formation. The fleet didn't ask permission. It didn't broadcast warnings. It moved like a predator answering a challenge. From the lead ship came a single transmission. "This is the Terran fleet." The cry for help was heard. "Stand back. This planet is now under our protection." In the Zarn command ship, Admiral Trithshu snarled, "Terrans, the Deathworlders." His subordinates trembled. Another officer whispered, "There were stories, but we thought they were myths." "They're not," the admiral hissed. "Form battle lines. Prepare to engage." But it was already too late. The Terran fleet unleashed Hell missiles streaked through orbit, each guided with terrifying precision. Zarn destroyers exploded within seconds. Terran drones swarmed the battlefield like a storm of steel hornets, ripping apart enemy fighters with cold efficiency. On the ground, Voro and his soldiers looked to the sky. The black shapes above moved like wrath itself. "Are we saved?" one of his soldiers asked, almost afraid to hope. "No," Voro whispered. "We've been avenged." Across the planet, Terran drop pods fell like meteors. Within minutes, mechanized infantry spread through city ruins, flanking enemy forces. And driving them back, combat walkers crushed tanks. Laser fire lit the night like a second sunrise, and leading them all was a name that struck fear into even the boldest warlords. Commander Adrian Cross. Her reputation had traveled ahead of her ruthless. Brilliant, unbreakable. She landed with her elite unit directly in the heart of the resistance zone, stepping out of her transport as if walking into a minor inconvenience. "Commander," a local officer said, bowing in disbelief. "We didn't think anyone would come." Cross adjusted her helmet and scanned the battlefield. "We don't do small favors," she said coldly. "We send fleets." In the Zarn command center, panic spread. Their forces were being torn apart. The Terrans had jammed their comms, destroyed their orbital support, and now their reinforcements were being eliminated. Mid-warp. Admiral Trithshu watched as his ships fell one after another. How are they doing this?" One of his aides trembled. "They fight like machines. No hesitation, no retreat." "No," the admiral replied slowly. They fight like they've been waiting for this. On the ground, Cross gave the order. Push forward. Secure all civilian sectors. No Zarn leaves this planet alive. Her soldiers didn't shout or cheer. They just obeyed, moving like ghosts through fire and rubble. Every shot counted. Every step was death for the enemy. In one burning alley, 2 Terran soldiers rescued a group of children trapped under debris. "Easy," one said gently, lifting rubble with his exoarm. "We've got you. Are you humans?" a little girl whispered. "Yeah," the soldier replied with a smile. "You called, we answered." In orbit, the final Zarn warship exploded in a silent fireball. The Terran fleet didn't celebrate. They simply repositioned, scanning for threats. Cross's voice came over the "Comes. The planet is secure. Begin stabilization protocol. Aid teams, move in." Voro watched as the nightmare ended. As human engineers arrived, setting up clean water systems, mobile hospitals, and power grids, he approached Cross as she surveyed the ruins. "You didn't have to come," he said. Cross didn't look at him. "You asked for help, but no one helps anymore. Not really. Not like this." She turned to him now. Her eyes were cold steel. "We're Deathworlders. When we come, we don't send whispers. We send fire." Voro nodded slowly. "Then I'm glad the galaxy still has monsters on our side." Cross gave the faintest smile. Not monsters, just humans. Above them, the Terran fleet remained in orbit, watching, waiting, ready, and somewhere in the dark. Across the stars, others listened. Others who had ignored cries for help before. Now they knew the Deathworlders were listening, and when they answered, they didn't come alone. They brought the storm. The sky above Corrales turned dark, not from nightfall, but from something worse, something massive. Clouds split open as thousands of warships dropped from orbit. The air buzzed with strange energy. No one on the planet knew what was coming, except Commander Vatra. She had been waiting. From her bunker deep inside the mountain, she watched the screens light up one by one. Each showed a new Deathworlder ship descending. Some were large, like cities, others sharp and sleek, like daggers in the sky, and each bore the same terrifying Symbol-Earth's black flag with the crimson claw. Her voice trembled. They actually came. All of them her aid. Rello leaned closer to the screen. "But we only asked for help. We didn't ask for." This Vatra didn't answer. She knew how humans operated now. She had seen them in war once before. When they respond, they don't just help. They eradicate the problem. But this time, the problem was already gone. "Contact their lead ship," Vatra ordered, "before they make a mistake." Rello nodded and rushed to the console. But it was already too late, far above the planet, inside. The Terran dreadnought Hellsgate, Admiral Roth, stood with his hands behind his back. The old war veteran scanned the star map, his eyes locked on Corrales. No signs of enemy movement. Said Captain Elise beside him. "They might be hiding underground," Roth muttered. "We should prepare the orbital railguns," Roth nodded, "and send in recon wings 4 through 9. We burn the enemy out, no exceptions." But Sir Elise hesitated. "Our scans show no major enemy forces. The planet seems ... peaceful." Roth didn't blink. "They always seem peaceful before. They strike. We didn't bring 20 fleets to wait and watch." "Yes, Admiral Az." The ships moved into position. The surface of Corrales erupted into chaos. Civilians ran. Warning sirens screamed. In every city, people looked up and saw the shadow of Earth's fury approaching. They had begged for help months ago when the Zarn invaders had come. Now, the Zarn were gone. But Earth's answer had arrived too late. Or maybe too strong. Back in the mountain bunker, Rello shouted. "We've made contact. A human officer is responding." "Put it on screen," Vatra said. The screen blinked, then flickered into life. A grizzled face appeared, gray hair, a cold stare, and black armor with red edges, Admiral Roth. "This is Commander Vatra of the Corrales Defense Council," she said quickly. "We thank you for responding to our distress call. You requested aid." "We're here to remove the threat," Roth cut in. "But the Zarn left. Weeks ago, we fought them back ourselves with local help." "The war is over." The line went silent. Then Roth narrowed his eyes. "The war is never over until the threat is gone completely. There is no threat left," Vatra insisted. "That's not your call to make," Roth said flatly. Our fleet has orders. We don't come all this way just to turn back. Admiral, if you fire on this planet now, it won't be war, it will be slaughter. Roth didn't blink. Then tell your people to get out of the way. He cut the signal. Vatra slammed her fist on the table. He's going to destroy everything. Rello stood frozen. Why would they do this? We're allies. We begged for help now. They treat us like enemies. Vatra stared at the dark sky, because to them, Deathworlders don't answer calls. They punish threats, even if that threat is already dead. A deep hum filled the air. Dozens of glowing lights appeared in the sky. Earth's railguns were charging. The clouds turned white-hot from the buildup, and just before they fired, everything stopped. A second voice broke through Roth's command deck, one that froze even him. Stand down, Admiral. The voice came from a different ship, the Iron Throne flagship of the Terran High Council. Roth turned slowly. General Atreus, the voice of the Deathworld, High General, filled the bridge. We received new intel. The Zarn are gone. Their hives have gone silent across 3 systems. Corrales is clean, but Atreus barked. If we fire, we turn allies into enemies. We came here because they trusted us, not because we wanted to show off our fleet. Roth clenched his jaw, but he knew better than to argue. Order the fleet to stand down, Atreus finished. The railguns powered down. The skies slowly turned dark again. On the ground, the people of Corrales saw death pass them by. Dash barely dot in her bunker. Vatra stared at the screen. Did they cancel the strike? Rello grinned with disbelief. Yes, they ... They actually stopped. Above, the planet Roth turned to Elise. Send a message to Commander Vatra. Tell her Earth apologizes for the delay and the threat. Roth looked at the map one last time. No more threats, not today. The next day, Terran dropships landed peacefully across Corrales. Medical supplies were handed out. Engineers began rebuilding ruined towns, and soldiers helped clear mines and old traps left by the Zarn. Children stared in awe at the giant war machines. One boy asked, "Are you robots?" A soldier smiled. "No, kid, just humans. Deathworlders, maybe, but we bleed like everyone else." The boy frowned. "Why did you bring so many ships if the war was already over?" The soldier knelt down. "Because your cry for help reached a world that never takes chances." He pointed to the sky. "You called Earth, and Earth always answers, even if it's late." The stars above the shattered moon were cold and quiet. But silence did not mean safety. Deep in the dark void, a cloaked warship drifted, its engines silent, its weapons cold. Inside, Captain Lyra Vasquez stood motionless before the main screen. Her eyes locked on the swirling wreckage that once was the Brellock Forward Command Station. "There were no survivors?" she asked, voice calm but tense. "None," replied Lieutenant Hahn. "They didn't even have time to send a full distress signal, just fragments." Lyra's jaw tightened, and the signal reached us. "Barely," Hahn said. "Half of it was corrupted." But the word purge was clear. Everyone on the bridge fell quiet. "Purge protocols?" Lyra whispered. "They're still doing it." The purge protocols. Genocide masked by policy. Erasure of species considered too weak to resist. Long ago, the galactic powers used it. Against each other, now, someone new had revived it. And this time, it had reached Deathworlder ears. "Signal Fleet Omega-3, Lyra said. "We burn everything connected to this." Hahn nodded grimly. "All ships." Lyra didn't blink. "Every last one." The message was sent. A few minutes later, the void shifted. Space twisted and shimmered as thousands of Terran ships from the shadows, each one bristled with armor, cannons, and weapons banned in half the galaxy. Some were the size of cities. Others, sleek and fast, like daggers in the dark. The Deathworlders had arrived. They weren't just here to help. They were here to punish. The enemy's base orbited a dead planet, hidden behind radiation fields and sensor traps. But Earth's war fleets didn't need maps. They had instincts. Within minutes, reconnaissance drones swarmed the region. AI-driven scouts scanned every frequency, every flicker of movement. By the time the enemy noticed, it was already too late. "They've seen us," Hahn reported. "Let them," Lyra said. "It won't matter." Below them, on the surface of the dead world, The invaders scrambled. Hundreds of ships launched into orbit, their hulls humming with stolen tech. These weren't pirates. They were organized, clean, surgical, and cruel. But they had made a mistake. They thought no one would come. The first strike was sudden and surgical. A swarm of Earth's stealth cruisers blinked into reality inside the enemy's perimeter. Weapons. Armed before alarms even sounded, the enemy tried to respond. But their ships exploded mid-formation missiles, ripping through armor, railguns tearing through command decks. Screams echoed through fractured Comemstat inside one of the enemy carriers. Admiral Creel stumbled through the smoke. They were supposed to ignore this sector, he shouted. Deathworlders don't care about border systems. A trembling officer shook his head. Sir, this wasn't a normal distress signal. It had the human code embedded. Creel froze. The humans had heard it. He turned slowly toward the cracked view screen. And there it was, a massive Terran dreadnought, its hull glowing red from the heat of its weapons, stared down at them like a god. No, Creel whispered. Aboard. The dreadnought, indomitable. General Arcos watched with calm eyes. They've begun jamming transmissions. His aide said, Let them, Arcos replied. We're not here to talk. He raised his hand. Fire. The dreadnought's central cannon unleashed a blast so bright it tore the clouds of space apart. It struck the enemy's main command vessel, splitting it in two. The explosion lit the orbit like a small sun. Dozens of smaller Earthships joined the assault. Missile storms, EMP pulses, kinetic rods from orbit. There was no escape. Back on the ground, a group of alien survivors, scientists, farmers, civilians huddled in the wreckage of a once beautiful valley. They had been forced into silence, made to work under the invaders. Rule their voices had long been taken away. Now above them, the sky turned red. But this fire wasn't death. It was justice. A small girl clutched her mother's hand. Is that thunder? She asked. No, sweet one, the mother whispered. Those are Earthships. They've come. The people watched as the stars bled fire and their enemies' machines fell like burning metal rain. For the first time in years, they smiled. Creel's final command was to run. He tried to activate his escape ship, a sleek destroyer with experimental stealth, but it never launched. Before it even moved, a Terran strike fighter ripped through its hull with a railgun round. The ship cracked open like an egg. Inside the wreckage, the last thing Creel saw was the Terran planet wrapped in fire and iron. He had made the mistake of underestimating a death world. Now it was ending him. 3 hours later, the battle was over. Lyra stood on the surface of the enemy base, walking through the ruins. Smoke curled into the sky. The once proud structures were now blackened skeletons. Her boots crushed ash and steel as she approached the last bunker. It opened slowly. A single surviving enemy officer crawled out, wounded, his weapon lost. He looked up at her. You killed everyone, he stammered. No, Lyra replied. You did. We just made sure it stopped. He tried to speak again, but she turned and walked away as the fleet regrouped. A new signal pulsed through the galaxy. Not a distress call, a warning from Earth. We received your cry for help, the message said. We came. We ended it. If you harm the innocent, if you purge the weak, we will hear. And when we do, we bring the fleet. The sky over Keller Prime shimmered with ash and fire. The alien planet, once green and calm, was now burning under the weight of war. Smoke curled into the upper atmosphere, and massive shadows moved through the cloud shadows of ships. Not just any ships. Terran warships dot below, in the heart of the ruined capital, Captain Renner of the Kellori Resistance staggered through the rubble. His once white robes were blackened with soot, his face tired, bleeding. His people were almost gone. The enemy, the Dravik, had taken the skies, the fields, and the cities. But as Renner collapsed beside a broken statue, something strange happened. The air began to hum. Not like the hum of Dravik dropships or their bone-shaking, sonic weapons. This was different, deeper, powerful. It was a sound the galaxy had learned to fear. Terran engines. Moments later, a massive sonic boom cracked the sky. Renner looked up, shielding his eyes, and gasped. A giant metallic shape broke through the cloud, sleek, dark, and armed to the teeth. Behind it, a fleet followed. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Carriers. Destroyers. Dreadnoughts each, one glowing with deadly purpose. The humans had come. General Marlowe stood on the bridge of the TNS Revenant, eyes scanning the battlefield. The fleet AI, nicknamed Vera, spoke. In her calm tone, enemy fleet count 87 capital ships, orbital control at 60%. Terran reinforcements arriving in 20 seconds. Marlowe gave a small nod. Deploy phalanx wings, scramble reapers. No speeches, no warnings. This is vengeance. On the outer edges of orbit, hundreds of Terran fighters screamed into formation. Like insects with a purpose, they danced through. Enemy flak, weaving in perfect coordination. They weren't here to fight for politics. They were here because someone had begged for help, and the Deathworlders always answered with fire down on the planet. Dravik Commander Vorthal snarled as his command center shook from another explosion. "What is this?" he roared. "We destroyed their outposts, their colonies. Where did this fleet come from?" His lieutenant trembled. "SCR, it's Earth. The Deathworlders have arrived." Vorthal's eyes went wide. "That signal, the one we intercepted, it reached them? Yes. And, sir, they brought the Black Flag fleet." Silence filled the room. Even the Dravik soldiers, cold and cruel as they were, knew the stories. The Black Flag fleet didn't just win battles. They erased civilizations. On the ground, chaos reigned. Terran drop pods rained from the sky like steel comets. When they hit the dirt, out came soldiers in heavy armor. Their visors glowing red dot, Captain Jade Kaur smashed through the first Dravik patrol with her gauntlet blades, shouting to her team, "Push forward! We take the Cum Tower, no prisoners, Sergeant." Malik laughed through the fire. "This is for Titan Colony, you freaks!" Behind them, Kalori survivors began to rise from the rubble. They watched as human soldiers fought like machines, fast, brutal, unrelenting. Hope sparked in their broken hearts. "Are they here for us?" one elder asked. Captain Reener, still limping, answered with a hoarse whisper. "Yes, they came." Meanwhile, above the burning cities, the Revenant locked onto the enemy flagship. "Target locked," Vera said. Final confirmation. General Marlowe's voice was cold. A moment later, a Terran kinetic lance punched through the void, hit the Dravik flagship's shields, and shattered them. The second strike split the vessel in half. Debris rained into the atmosphere like falling stars. One by one, the Dravik ships were hunted down. No retreat, no mercy. Dravik High Command tried to signal surrender. Marlowe didn't answer, not yet. Instead, he let the Terran Marines storm their bunkers, let their drones crawl through tunnels, and let their gunships burn every last hidden outpost. The Deathworlders believed in peace, but only after the threat was completely destroyed. On the eastern continent, Captain Jade reached the final Cum Tower. The fighting was heavy. One of her squad mates was hit by a plasma bolt and thrown back. "Medic!" she screamed, diving into cover. But before the enemy could push forward, a shadow dropped from the sky, a Terran heavy mech. Its pilot, a hulking cyborg, known only as Griggs, landed with a thunderous crash and raised twin cannons. He said only one word, "Clear." Then he fired. When the dust settled, nothing hostile remained. That night, for the first time in years, the stars over Keller Prime shone clearly. General Marlowe stepped onto the surface, his boots crunching softly against the ash. Captain Reener walked toward him, weak but proud. "You answered," Renar said. Marlowe nodded. "Your message reached Earth." "That's all we needed." "We had nothing left," Renner whispered. "No weapons, no army. We only had the hope that anyone would hear us." "You called," Marlowe said quietly, "and we brought the fleet." He looked at the smoking horizon. "But this was only one world. The Dravik won't stop. They've spread across 20 systems. We've tracked them, and we're going after every one. Renar stepped forward. "Then we will fight with you." Marlowe glanced at him. "Are you ready to become Deathworlders, Renner?" The alien captain smiled faintly. "We already have." Back on the Revenant, the fleet gathered once more in orbit. The data from Keller had already been analyzed. The enemy's next stronghold had been located. Veras voice echoed again. Coordinates set. Final orders. Marlowe looked across his bridge crew. He thought of all the worlds that had burned, all the people who had begged for help and who never got it. Not this time. Send the fleet, he said, and don't stop until the stars remember who we are. The stars above Eridax burned brighter than usual. Captain Lorna Vale stood on the bridge of the TNS Tyrant's Vow, humanity's flagship in orbit over the ruined world. Smoke still rose from the broken cities below, and scattered cries for help echoed over emergency coms. She clenched her fists. How many survivors left? Less than 20%, her officer whispered. Civilians are hiding underground. The rest, the Grail took them. Lorna turned to the fleet spread before her, over 100 Terran warships, each one bristling with weapons, armor, and hate. Every ship had a red band painted across its hull now, a symbol of vengeance. A warning. Put the Grail homeworld on screen, she said coldly. The screen lit up. The planet Akritos was beautiful from space, with twin oceans and deep violet continents. But beneath that beauty was a monster's nest, home to the race that had hunted and enslaved dozens of species across the galaxy. They wanted war, Lorna muttered. They'll drown in it. The war room was silent, save for the deep hum of engines charging. Suddenly a new signal came through, urgent, panicked, and alien. Terran Command, this is High Speaker Vornok of the Coalition Council. We beg you do not attack Akritos. We're negotiating a ceasefire. The alien voice hesitated. We thought Earth would not respond. We feared provoking the Grail. She stepped closer to the console. And now that the Grail are afraid of us, you want peace. Please, Vornok begged. There are millions of innocents on Akritos. Not all Grail supported this war. Lorna's voice turned ice cold. Did the innocence of Eridax matter to them? No answer came. Admiral Stroud's voice crackled from the Second Fleet. Captain, ready for orbital strike. Awaiting your order. Lorna hesitated, not because she doubted, but because she wanted to be sure. Give me visuals from surface intel. Her screen shifted. It showed Grail cities, some still bustling, others already evacuating. Soldiers marched, anti-air defenses armed themselves. Civilians panicked. Then the feed changed, showing a prison facility, hundreds of alien captives behind energy fields. One of them, a small, four-armed Clearan child, looked directly at the camera, terrified. Her voice lowered. Patch me to the surface. The cum buzzed. A Grail general appeared. His mandibles clicked in arrogance. You are the Terran commander. I am, she replied. You think your ships make you gods? The Grail spat. You are just another prey species, too stubborn to bow. Lorna narrowed her eyes. You invaded our allies. You butchered cities. You enslaved the helpless. You call that war, he sneered. We call it tradition. She didn't blink. And now, we call this justice. The feed ended. Admiral Stroud, she said. Target only military facilities. Spare civilian zones and prison camps. I want precision strikes, no wasted blood, he replied with a proud tone. Aye, Captain, weapons hot. The sky burned a moment later. Across Akritos, targeted bolts of plasma and railgun strikes hit their marks command centers, weapons factories, orbital towers. Shockwaves rippled across the planet, but the fleet held back from full-scale annihilation. Grail forces scrambled. But Earth's fleet was too fast, too smart, too angry, ma'am. Her officer called. They're broadcasting. Surrender signals. She nodded. Hold fire. The battlefield fell silent, save for a few smoke trails. In less than 20 minutes, the Deathworlders had broken the back of the Grail war machine. Another message came in, this time from the Grail high-caste Terran commander. We surrender unconditionally. The war is over. Lorna stepped back from the console, then began evacuation of all prisoners. Turn over your war leaders for trial, and prepare to rebuild what you broke. The voice shook. You would show mercy, she replied. Mercy isn't weakness. It's something you forgot, but we didn't. As the prisoners were freed and medics poured down in dropships, one Eridax woman fell to her knees in tears. A Terran Marine helped her up. You came, she whispered. You really came. He nodded. We always do. From above the red fleet hovered in orbit, unmoving, unshaken, across the galaxy. News spread fast. The Deathworlders had answered a cry for help, and they had not just fought, they had ended an empire, In the war room, Admiral Stroud raised a glass. To Eridax, he said. Lorna nodded. To the ones who cried out, and to the ones who never will again. But as the crew celebrated, a dark warning flashed on Lorna's private screen. Rogue Gryle, fleet-armed with forbidden weapons, was headed toward a new target, Earth. She stared in silence. The war wasn't over yet. It had only changed shape, and now the monsters were coming to the home of monsters. She turned to her crew. Recall all fleets. Prepare the home defense grid. What's coming? Her XO asked. Lorna's eyes were cold as ice. A mistake they'll never make twice. Smoke and broken metal floated in space. The last enemy cruiser tried to run, its engines damaged and leaking plasma. But Earth's war fleet wasn't done yet. A Terran battleship locked on and fired. The beam punched through the enemy ship's hull like it was paper. The ship exploded in silence, its pieces spinning off into the void. Captain Rhea watched it on the bridge screen. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of fire. That was the last of them, she asked. Confirmed, said Lieutenant Juno. No more enemy signals. We've won. But no one on the bridge cheered. Not yet. They all knew this war had started with a cry for help from a weak voice in the dark, a small species begging for mercy. And now, 10 systems burned because of it. But those systems were burning because Earth had answered. They started this war with lies, said Rhea, but we ended it with truth and fire. Commander Malik looked up from his station. Ma'am? Incoming message from the Council. Rhea gave a slow nod. Put it through. The screen changed. A pale, thin alien face, a Belrin of the Gornathi High Council. He looked exhausted. His robes were torn, his eyes bloodshot. Rhea of Earth. His voice trembled. You have crushed our fleets, destroyed our war factories, taken our worlds. What more do you want? Rhea stood from her chair. Her voice was like steel. You lied to us. You said the Nyren were terrorists. You said they had attacked you. But we saw the truth. You hunted them. You bombed their planets. You forced them to beg us for help. They are a lower species, Velrin snapped. They were never meant to sit at the same table as us. That table, Rhea said coldly, is now dust. Counselor Velrin's image faded. There was silence for a moment. Then Rhea turned to her crew. Set course for the Nyren homeworld. Full escort. They need help rebuilding. Aye, Captain, said Juno. But what if the Council retaliates? They won't, Rhea said. They've seen what Deathworlders do when someone cries for help. The fleet moved slowly through space, passing the wreckage of enemy warships. Fires still burned in some of the destroyed hulls. Drones flew among the ruins, scanning for survivors. On the Nyren homeworld, people watched the sky. Then they saw it, the fleet, massive, dark, and beautiful. Ships shaped like daggers in mountains, glowing with blue light, humming with power. They blocked out the stars, but this time the people didn't run, they cheered. The children of a broken planet cried tears of joy. The elders fell to their knees. The Deathworlders had returned out to fight, but to protect Ambassador Thalos, the Nyren leader, met Rhea on the surface. His voice trembled. We thought no one would help us. You were wrong, Rhea said gently. You asked for help. We brought everything, far across the stars. In another council chamber, the galactic powers gathered again. They looked at the footage, the destruction of the Gornathi fleet, the power of the Earth Armada, the precision of their strikes, and the mercy they showed afterward. They are monsters, one counselor whispered. No, said another. They are protectors. And what if they turn on us? Then we better make sure we never become the ones hurting the weak. In a school on the Nyren world, a child asked a question. Why did the humans help us? His teacher smiled. Because that is who they are. They live on a world of storms and beasts. They build fire and steel. But when someone cries for help, they come. The boy tilted his head. Even when it means war. Especially then, said the teacher. Later that night on her command ship, Rhea stood in her quarters, staring out at the stars. Malik asked her quietly. Rhea didn't answer at first. Then she said, We answered a cry for help with fleets, fire and fury. We lost good people, but now millions are free, and the galaxy knows Earth listens. Malik nodded. The next time someone screams in the dark, they'll know who might be coming. Rhea smiled faintly. Let them know. And so it was written. When the weak cry out, Deathworlders answer, not with silence, but with entire fleets.